I think back to the day everything changed, the moment my comfortable life unraveled like a cheap sweater. My name is Jake, and I was married to a woman named Sarah for 5 years. We had a picture-perfect life, or so I thought. I remember the way Sarah would light up a room with her laughter, the way her green eyes sparkled when she talked about her dreams, and how, despite our occasional arguments, we always found a way to communicate and connect. That was until I started noticing subtle shifts in her behavior. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just stressed at work. She had recently been promoted and was managing a team for the first time. But then the long nights at the office became more frequent, and I could tell she was distracted when we were together. Conversations grew shorter, her texts more curt. She'd stare at her phone, a secret smile creeping onto her face whenever a notification buzzed. It felt like I was competing against an unknown entity for her attention. The intuition was nagging at me, urging me to dig deeper. One rainy Tuesday, I decided to surprise her with dinner. I prepped her favorite meal, chicken Alfredo with a side of garlic bread. As I chopped the garlic, my phone buzzed with a text from my old college buddy Mike, asking if I wanted to catch the game that weekend. I replied and glanced over at Sarah's phone, which lay face up on the kitchen counter. A notification popped up, illuminating the screen with a message from a contact named Eric. Curiosity got the better of me. The name didn't ring a bell, and I had a sinking feeling in my gut. I picked up her phone, my heart racing as I opened the message, fully aware this was crossing a line. My breath hitched in my throat as I read the words on the screen. "I can't stop thinking about our last night together. You mean so much to me." I froze. My first instinct was disbelief. I had to be reading this wrong. I checked the sender's name again. It was Eric, no last name. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The world around me blurred as I read the message again, and each repeated word carved deeper into my heart until it felt like a hollowed-out shell of what once was. In a haze, I continued scrolling through the conversation. Sarah had been texting him for weeks, exchanging sweet nothings, plans for future meetups, and even explicit messages about their encounters. My mind raced with images of my wife in the arms of another man while I had been slaving away at work, blissfully unaware. I wanted to scream, to break something, but instead, I felt the hot sting of tears building in my eyes. When Sarah walked through the door later that evening, I was ready to confront her. My heart pounded as I kept my composure, pretending everything was normal. I could smell the faint hint of perfume that wasn't hers, the kind she never wore. The thought made my stomach churn. I set the table for dinner, my hands shaking as I tried to maintain a facade of calm. "Hey babe, I made your favorite," I said with a forced smile. "Thanks, Jake. You're the best," she replied, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. But I could see her eyes darting to her phone. It was like she was running away from me, from the reality we had built together. After dinner, with the dishes still piled high in the sink, I took a deep breath and decided it was time to confront her. Her phone buzzed again, and I knew it wasn't just a harmless text. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady. She looked up, clearly caught off guard. "About what?" I pulled out my phone, ready to show her what I found. I felt like I was going to burst from the pressure. "About Eric. I know what's going on." Her face went pale, and I saw the panic rise in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" She stammered, but I could see her heart racing. "I know about the texts. I read them. You think I'm stupid." My voice rose and the frustration poured out, a whirlwind of hurt and betrayal. "Jake, listen," she started, but I cut her off. "Don't you dare try to lie to me. I've seen everything." I held my phone out to her, the messages displayed on the screen like a damning indictment of our marriage. Her reaction was a mix of anger and desperation. "You have no idea what you're talking about," she yelled, her voice rising to match mine. "You're being paranoid." But I wasn't paranoid, I was heartbroken. As the argument escalated, her words became more defensive, more frantic. "It's not what it looks like, I swear." She grasped at excuses, claiming it was just a fling, that it didn't mean anything. But each lie made the ache in my chest grow. I could feel the walls closing in. In that moment, I realized that the woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who would betray me without a second thought. I was left standing there, reeling from this revelation, wondering how I had been so blind. This was just the beginning of what would soon become a chaotic spiral of anger, betrayal, and a thirst for revenge. Everything I thought I knew was about to change. The argument escalated into a tempest of accusations and denials. Sarah's face twisted from anger to desperation, her green eyes pleading for understanding that I just couldn't muster. "Jake, please, it was just a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you," she shouted, her voice cracking as she tried to grab my phone. Hand. My heart raced, a mix of fury and betrayal swirling inside me. "A mistake? You call this a mistake?" I gestured toward the screen, the damning evidence of her infidelity glaring back at us. "You've been texting him for weeks, Sarah. You've been planning to meet up with him. This isn't a mistake, it's a choice." The words hit her like a slap, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of regret in her eyes, but it vanished just as quickly, replaced by defiance. "You don't understand. I've been unhappy," she yelled, her voice thick with emotion. "You're always working late, you don't pay attention to me anymore." It felt like a punch to the gut. "So you decided to sleep with another man, that's your solution?" I shot back, bitterness lacing my tone. "Maybe if you had been there for me, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere," she retorted, anger bubbling up like a volcano ready to erupt. I slammed my hand on the table, rattling the dishes. "You could have talked to me. You could have said something instead of betraying me." Her face twisted into a mask of fury, and I could see the conflict raging within her. The woman I loved was spiraling away from me, and I felt like a helpless bystander in my own life. After what felt like hours, the confrontation fizzled out, and we both fell into a heavy silence. The air between us crackled with tension, and I could hardly breathe. I was angry, hurt, and utterly lost. I felt like my world was unraveling, and I had no idea how to put it back together. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the shadows dancing across the walls as my mind raced. Images of Sarah and Eric flashed through my thoughts, and I could feel the bitterness rising in my throat. I had trusted her, believed in our love, and now it felt like everything was built on a foundation of lies. What hurt the most was the realization that I had been blind to her unhappiness. I replayed memories of our life together, searching for signs I might have missed. The way she'd smile, even when she was distant, and the times she'd brush off my questions about her day. I couldn't deny I had been absorbed in my work, but the weight of her betrayal felt unbearable. As dawn broke, casting pale light through the curtains, I knew I couldn't just let this go. I refused to be the victim of this twisted narrative. I wanted answers, and I wanted revenge, sweet, bitter revenge. I started to formulate a plan. The more I thought about it, the more justified I felt in my desire to make her feel the pain she had inflicted on me. I needed to make her understand the depth of her betrayal, and I couldn't do that with mere words. I wanted to dismantle the illusion she had created, to expose her actions for what they really were. That's when it hit me. Sarah had a close relationship with her mother, and if there was anyone who could cast light on what she'd done, it was her mom. I sat up in bed, the gears in my mind turning. I would show her mother those messages. I imagined how Sarah would feel when her mom confronted her, her face, the guilty expression as she tried to spin a web of lies. I smiled bitterly at the thought. I knew this was going to get messy, but I didn't care. I was tired of being the good husband, the one who turned the other cheek. This time I would be the one to take charge of my narrative. I quickly gathered my phone, scrolling through the messages and taking screenshots. I made sure to get everything, every sweet whisper, every plan they had made, all the lies that had been spun behind my back. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, fueling my determination. Around noon, I finally texted Sarah's mom, Linda. "Hey Linda, I need to talk to you about something important regarding Sarah. Can we meet?" I hit send, feeling a mix of dread and exhilaration. I knew this wouldn't end well for anyone, but it was too late for second guessing. I had to see this through. Within a few minutes, my phone buzzed with a response. "Of course, Jake. Is everything okay?" I stared at the message, and a wave of guilt washed over me. I had once loved this woman who had raised my wife, but the anger and betrayal were too fresh, too potent to dismiss. I typed back, "Not really. I need to explain something to you in person. When can we meet?" I felt a sense of clarity wash over me as I made plans to meet her. This was it. I was stepping into the role of the man wronged, the husband betrayed. The idea of revenge began to feel like a beacon, guiding me through the storm of emotions swirling around in my chest. I was ready to take back my power. The meeting with Linda was set for the following day at a small coffee shop a few blocks from our house. I arrived early, my mind racing with what I would say and how she would react. I thought about all the moments I had shared with her over the years, the family dinners, the holidays, the way she'd always treated me like one of her own. But now all of that felt tainted by her daughter's betrayal. As I sat there nursing a cup of black coffee, I couldn't shake the tension building in my stomach. I needed to keep my composure. I had to remain strong. My phone buzzed. Linda was on her way. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves and focused on the door as I awaited her arrival. When she entered, I stood up to greet her. "Hi, Linda," I said, forcing a smile that felt foreign on my face. "Jake, it's so good to see you," she replied, her warmth enveloping me momentarily. "Is everything okay with Sarah?" I gestured for her to sit, my heart racing. "Actually, no, I need to talk to you about something serious." Her expression shifted, concern etched across her face. "What is it? You're scaring me." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I found some messages on Sarah's phone. She's been having an affair." The words hung in the air between us, thick and suffocating. Linda's eyes widened, and I could see her processing the shocking news. "What? That's impossible. Sarah would never do that." I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshots. "I wish it were impossible, Linda. But here are the messages she's been exchanging with a guy named Eric. Look for yourself." As she read through the messages, I watched her face transform from disbelief to horror. I could see the color drain from her cheeks. As the reality of the situation sunk in, "I can't believe this. I need to talk to her," she finally said, shaking her head in disbelief. "Before you do that, I want you to understand how deeply this has affected me. She's not the person you think she is anymore," I said, feeling a surge of emotion. "I've put everything into our marriage, and this is how she repays me." Linda's expression softened as she looked up at me. "Oh, Jake, I had no idea. I thought she was just going through a phase. I should have been more present for her." "Maybe, but it doesn't excuse what she did," I replied, my voice steady. "I'm not here to place blame on you, Linda. I just want you to understand what I'm going through. I never thought I'd find myself in this position." As we talked, I could see the pain in Linda's eyes, the way she wrestled with guilt and frustration. "I'll confront her about this. She needs to be held accountable," she finally said, her voice resolute. "And I'll make sure she knows how much she's hurt you." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. "Thank you. I just want her to understand the consequences of her actions, to feel the weight of this betrayal." After our conversation, I felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew I had done the right thing by exposing Sarah's lies. I left the coffee shop feeling lighter, but the shadow of betrayal still loomed over me. That evening, I braced myself for Sarah's return home. When she walked in, I could see she was on edge, her usual carefree demeanor replaced by tension. "Hey, babe," she said, trying to sound casual, but it was clear she could sense something was off. "Do you know where your mom is?" I asked, my tone deliberately neutral. I needed to gauge her reaction. She paused, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. "No, why? Did something happen?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I talked to her today. She knows about Eric." The color drained from her face as she processed my words. "You what?" she exclaimed, panic rising in her voice. "You told my mom?" "Of course I did. She deserves to know what her daughter has been up to," I replied, feeling a sense of triumph. "Jake, you have no idea what you've done. This isn't just about you and me anymore. You can't involve my family in this," she shouted, her voice cracking as tears welled in her eyes. "Maybe if you hadn't been lying and cheating on me, I wouldn't have had to," I shot back, my anger boiling over. She stumbled back as if my words had physically struck her. "You don't understand what I was going through. I was lost. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Save it, Sarah. You've had plenty of chances to come clean, to be honest with me," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning inside me. "But instead, you chose to betray me." As we stood in the kitchen, a palpable tension filled the room. I could see the realization dawning on her face. the understanding of what she'd lost now that her mother was involved. "Please just let me explain," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "I was just looking for something I thought I lost. I didn't think it would turn into this." "Then you should have talked to me like a partner should, but you didn't, did you? You chose to sneak around and betray my trust instead," I said, my heart pounding. "Jake," she began, but I cut her off. "Why should I listen to you? You've shown me who you really are," I said, my voice hardening. "I'm done with the lies." The anger in her eyes flickered for a moment, replaced by a vulnerability I had never seen. "I can change. I'll do anything to fix this," she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks, but I was done. I had spent too much time forgiving and accepting excuses. I needed to take back control over my life. "Maybe it's too late for that, Sarah," I said, my voice low. "You've shattered my trust, and I don't know if I can ever rebuild it." I turned away from her, knowing this was only the beginning of the fallout from her actions. As I walked away, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I was determined to move forward, and with each step I felt the weight of betrayal begin to lift, replaced by a resolve for the future. Little did I know, the real storm was only just beginning. The confrontation with Linda had set off a chain reaction, one that would ultimately force Sarah to face the truth of her actions, and me to confront what I truly wanted moving forward. The next few days were a blur. After that tense confrontation with Sarah, I felt a mix of relief and dread. I had taken a significant step in my journey of confronting the betrayal, but I knew that the aftermath would be complicated. I could hardly focus on work. My mind kept drifting back to the chaos at home. I received a text from Linda later that night, thanking me for being honest and saying she wanted to talk to Sarah. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this could lead to some understanding, some closure for both of us. But the reality of the situation weighed heavily on my heart. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a larger confrontation. Sarah and I barely spoke during those days. She would try to engage me in conversation, but I often found myself retreating into silence. I could see the guilt etched on her face, but I was still too hurt to engage in any meaningful dialogue. I didn't want to let her smooth talking twist my emotions again. Then one evening, after I had come home from work, Sarah approached me with a new intensity in her eyes. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady, a stark contrast to the emotional whirlwind that had engulfed us. I nodded slowly, bracing myself for whatever was about to come. We sat at the kitchen table, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken words. "I know I messed up, Jake. I know I've hurt you more than I can ever explain," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "But I want to try and fix this. I'll go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please give me a chance to make it right." I felt a surge of conflicting emotions, anger, sadness, and a flicker of hope that maybe we could salvage something from the wreckage. But then the memory of the messages flashed before my eyes, and I felt the familiar anger bubbling up again. "Sarah, you say you want to fix this, but it feels like those words are just empty, just like the promises you made when we got married." Her eyes glistened with tears. "I know I've broken your trust. I can't take back what I did, but I want to show you that I am serious about making amends. Please just let me try." I looked at her, searching for sincerity. "How do I know this isn't just another lie? You've already deceived me once. How can I trust anything you say?" "Because I love you, Jake. I know it sounds cliché, but I do. I've made a terrible mistake, and now I realize how much I have taken you and our marriage for granted," she pleaded, her voice thick with emotion. It felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I wanted to believe her, to think that a glimmer of our past connection could be restored. But the hurt was still too fresh, too raw. "You've made your choice, Sarah. You chose to pursue someone else rather than talk to me about how you were feeling." I replied, my voice steady but tinged with sadness. I know," she exclaimed, frustration bubbling to the surface. "But I was confused. I thought I could find something more exciting, that I was missing out on life. I never thought it would go this far." "Excitement? Is that what you call it? You think texting some guy behind my back is excitement?" I shot back, anger flaring once again. "You could have had all of that with me if you just communicated." "I was scared, Jake. Scared of what I might lose if I faced the truth," she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. I felt my heart clench. There was a part of me that wanted to comfort her, to reassure her that we could work through this. But another part of me screamed that I had to be strong, that I had to protect myself from further heartbreak. Maybe we need some time apart to figure things out, I said finally, feeling an odd sense of calm wash over me. I can't continue living in this limbo, Sarah. I need to know if this is something you're willing to fight for, or if you're just trying to save face. She shook her head, a mix of panic and despair on her face. No, don't say that. I'll do anything. I don't want to lose you. But I held firm. I think a little distance might give us both perspective. I can't keep pretending everything is okay while we're here trapped in this cycle of hurt. The next few days felt surreal. I stayed at a friend's place, trying to wrap my head around everything. I kept replaying our conversations, dissecting every word, every reaction. It was like I was trapped in a nightmare, unable to wake up. In the days that followed, Sarah reached out multiple times, each message more desperate than the last. "Please come home. Let's talk," she texted. "I love you. I'll make this right." But I couldn't let myself be swayed by her pleas. I had to stick to my decision. My heart was still raw, too tender to take any more bruising. One evening, I finally decided to confront the truth head-on. I called Linda and asked if we could meet again. I needed to let her know how things were progressing and get her insight on how to handle the situation with Sarah. When we met at the same coffee shop, I could see the concern etched on her face. "Jake, how are you holding up?" she asked gently, her voice soothing. "I'm doing okay, but I feel like I'm in limbo. Sarah is trying to win me back, but I'm not sure if I can trust her again," I admitted, feeling the weight of my words. Linda sighed, her expression pained. "I can't believe she would hurt you like this. I raised her to be better than this." "I know, and that's what makes this so hard," I replied. "I want to believe she can change, but it's difficult to see how she can after everything that's happened." Linda leaned in closer, her voice low. "You have to do what's best for you, Jake. If she truly loves you, she'll be willing to put in the work to earn your trust back. But don't let her manipulate you into thinking you have to jump back into things right away." Her words resonated with me. I couldn't afford to be swayed by Sarah emotions or desperate attempts to reconcile. I needed to find clarity within myself first to protect my own heart. As we continued to talk, I felt a renewed sense of determination. I had to be strong, not just for myself but for our future, whatever that future might look like. When I returned home later that evening, I felt a weight had been lifted. I knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to put in the work to find the truth, whether that meant repairing our relationship or starting anew. I was finally ready to confront both Sarah and my own feelings, and I wouldn't back down. The real challenge was yet to come, but I felt a sense of purpose igniting within me. Whatever happened next, I knew I had to be ready. After a few more restless days, I finally made the decision to return home. I had given Sarah enough time to reflect on her actions, and I needed to gauge whether her remorse was genuine or simply a facade crafted from guilt. I was anxious about what I might find, but I also knew I couldn't avoid it any longer. As I walked through the front door, I was met with an uneasy silence that enveloped the house. The air felt thick with unspoken words. Sarah was sitting on the couch, her eyes red and puffy from tears, her body tense as if she were bracing for impact. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to unfold. "Hey," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hey," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I didn't want to show her any weakness. I needed to be firm. "Can we talk?" she asked, her expression earnest. "Yeah, we need to." I gestured for her to start. This was her moment to articulate the changes she claimed she wanted to make, and I was ready to listen. "I've done a lot of thinking," Sarah began, her voice trembling slightly. "I know I've hurt you deeply, and I can't begin to express how sorry I am. I was confused and selfish. I took you for granted, and I didn't communicate when I should have. I thought Eric was a way to escape, but he was just a distraction from my reality. I realize that now." I listened intently, my heart heavy. It was hard to reconcile the woman in front of me with the one who had betrayed my trust so callously. "Go on," I said, trying to keep my expression neutral. "I want to go to therapy, not just for me, but for us. I need to understand why I made those choices and how I can avoid making them again. I want to work on our marriage. I don't want to lose you." she said, her sincerity palpable. I felt a flicker of hope, but it was quickly overshadowed by doubt. You say you want to change, Sarah, but how do I know this isn't just another empty promise? Because I'm willing to do the work. I'll prove to you that I can change. If you give me another chance, I won't waste it, she replied, her determination shining through the tears in her eyes. Trust needs to be rebuilt, and it doesn't happen overnight, I reminded her. I can't just ignore the hurt and betrayal. I need to know you're committed to this, and you need to understand that my feelings won't just disappear. I understand. I won't rush you, but I want to try, Jake, she said, her voice steady now. As the conversation continued, I felt a mixture of skepticism and cautious optimism. I wanted to believe her, but the wounds were still fresh. What if I give you a chance, but you slip again? I asked. What will you do then? I'll take full responsibility. I'll do everything in my power to make it right. I'll be open and transparent. I'll keep you informed about everything. No more lies, no more secrets, she promised, her eyes locked onto mine, searching for some sign of acknowledgement. I nodded slowly, considering her words. Okay, I'll consider it, but if I see any signs of deception or unwillingness to put in the effort, I'll walk away. I can't do this halfway. Agreed, she said, a sense of relief washing over her face. I'll show you that I'm serious. We spent the next hour discussing boundaries, expectations, and the steps we could take moving forward. It was strange to feel the tension dissolve slightly, replaced by a tentative hope. I knew we had a long road ahead, but I could also sense that we were both willing to try. As the days turned into weeks, we began attending couples therapy together. It was an eye-opening experience, revealing layers of communication issues and unmet needs that had been buried beneath the surface. Sarah was committed, showing genuine effort to understand her actions and take responsibility for them. There were moments when I felt the anger rise again, but I reminded myself that healing takes time. One evening, after a particularly intense therapy session, we sat on the couch, exhausted but hopeful. I feel like we're making progress, I said, glancing at Sarah. I do too, she replied, a small smile creeping onto her face. I know it will take time, but I'm willing to wait. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I can be the partner you deserve. I nodded, but a part of me still held back. I wanted to believe in her words, but I also knew that old habits die hard. I didn't want to fall back into the trap of blind trust. I needed to stay vigilant, to protect my heart while also allowing her the space to rebuild our relationship. Then, one day I received a call from Linda. Jake, can we meet again? I need to talk to you about something important, she said, her tone serious. I agreed without hesitation, my heart racing at the thought of what she might reveal. When we met at the coffee shop, I could see the concern etched on her face. What's going on? I asked. Sarah reached out to me. She's struggling with some of the feelings that have come up during therapy, Linda began. She's scared that she won't be able to make the changes necessary to win you back. What do you mean? I asked, concern creeping into my voice. She told me that she's afraid she might slip back into her old ways if she doesn't confront her underlying issues. She wants to be open about this, but she's feeling overwhelmed, Linda explained. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. What does that mean for our relationship? She thinks it might help if you both take a break from each other for a short time to really focus on individual growth. This isn't about ending things. It's about giving each other space to reflect, she said gently. I considered her words. I don't want to lose her, but I also want her to understand the gravity of her actions. Then maybe this is an opportunity for both of you to grow, Linda suggested. As I left the coffee shop, my mind was racing. It felt like we were teetering on the brink of a precipice. I needed to make a decision, one that would determine the future of our marriage. That night I sat on the edge of the bed, contemplating everything that had transpired. I was exhausted from the emotional turmoil, the fear, and the uncertainty. But I was also still committed to finding a way forward. I decided to take the time apart seriously. I would use this opportunity to reflect on what I truly wanted, and I hoped Sarah would do the same. She needed to prove to herself that she could stand on her own before we could even consider rebuilding our relationship. As I prepared for what was to come, I felt a strange mix of fear and liberation. The path ahead was unclear, but I was determined to navigate it with strength, no matter where it might lead. Little did I know, the next phase of our journey would bring more revelations and challenges than I could have ever anticipated, testing the bounds of my resilience and the fragility of our love. The time apart stretched on, each day feeling like a lifetime as I grappled with the weight of our situation. I stuck to my decision, dedicating my time to self-reflection and honing in on what I truly wanted. I started journaling, pouring my thoughts onto the pages as I tried to navigate through the emotional storm that still lingered. Sarah continued to reach out, sending messages filled with remorse and a desire to reconnect. At first, I read each one meticulously, trying to gauge her sincerity. But as the days passed, I realized I needed to step back and truly evaluate what was best for both of us, rather than getting caught in the whirlwind of her emotions. One afternoon, I decided to visit a park nearby, a place filled with memories of happier times. I sat on a bench, watching the leaves dance in the wind and reflecting on our relationship. I thought about the good moments, the laughter, the adventures, and the love we once shared. But those memories quickly became overshadowed by the pain of betrayal. As I sat there, lost in thought, I couldn't help but wonder if Sarah had made any real progress during our time apart. Was she truly working on herself, or was she simply wallowing in guilt? Then, out of nowhere, I received a call from Linda. "Jake, I think you should come over. Sarah wants to talk, and I believe she has something important to say," she urged, her tone serious yet hopeful. I felt my heart race. The moment of truth was finally upon me. "Okay, I'll be there," I replied, unsure of what to expect. When I arrived at Linda's house, the tension in the air was palpable. I found Sarah seated in the living room, her eyes reflecting a mixture of anxiety and determination. Linda offered a reassuring smile, giving us space to talk. "Thank you for coming," Sarah said, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "I've had a lot of time to think, and I realize how much I need to own up to my mistakes. I've been doing my own therapy sessions, focusing on my past and the reasons behind my actions." I nodded, gauging her sincerity. "And what have you learned?" "I've learned that I was using my unhappiness as an excuse to seek validation elsewhere. I didn't know how to communicate my feelings, and instead of talking to you, I ran away. But that's not who I want to be anymore," she explained, her voice growing stronger. "Do you really mean that?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Because I can't afford to be hurt again. This time, if we do this, we have to be fully committed." "I'm ready to be fully committed. I know it will take time to rebuild your trust, and I'm willing to wait. I want to show you that I can be the partner you deserve," she said earnestly. As I listened to her, I felt a flicker of hope igniting inside me. But there was still a lingering fear, a part of me that hesitated. "Sarah, what if you slip again? What if you go back to the old patterns?" "I won't let that happen. I promise I'll be transparent with you. I'll share everything I'm feeling. I'll communicate openly, no more hiding," she replied, her eyes earnest. I took a deep breath, realizing that this was a pivotal moment. I had to decide whether to give her another chance or walk away from the pain that still haunted me. After all the turmoil, I understood that healing would require effort from both of us. "Let's take it slow," I said finally. "We can start with open communication, and I want to see how you handle things moving forward. If you slip up, there won't be any second chances." "I understand completely," she said, her voice trembling slightly with relief. "I'll do everything I can to prove to you that I'm serious about this." The conversation shifted to the steps we could take moving forward. We talked about integrating check-ins and setting boundaries, emphasizing the importance of creating a safe space for open dialogue. As we spoke, I felt a sense of clarity washing over me. This wasn't about erasing the past. It was about learning from it and building a new foundation. After our talk, I stepped outside for some fresh air, allowing the gravity of my decision to settle in. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I felt a sense of empowerment. The decision to move forward one step at a time felt right. In the weeks that followed, Sarah and I began rebuilding our relationship piece by piece. It wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt and fear. But I could see her commitment, the way she actively sought to understand my feelings and expressed her own. We attended therapy sessions together, digging deeper into the issues that had plagued our marriage and finding ways to strengthen our bond. Slowly but surely, I began to feel my trust returning. I learned to be open about my feelings, sharing my fears and insecurities with her. And in turn, she opened up about her struggles, allowing me to see the vulnerable side of her that had once been hidden behind walls of defense. One evening, as we sat on the couch together, I looked at her and felt a warmth in my heart that had been absent for so long. "I can see the effort you're putting in and I appreciate it," I said, feeling a sense of gratitude wash over me. "I want this to work, Jake." "I love you and I'm sorry for everything," she replied, her eyes shining with sincerity. "I love you too," I said, feeling the weight of our shared journey. "But let's keep working. We have to keep communicating." As time passed, I realized that healing wasn't linear. There would still be challenges ahead, moments when doubt crept in or when old wounds were reopened. But for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about our future. I had learned that love is not just a feeling. It's a choice, a commitment to grow together even in the face of adversity. And as we continued on this path of rebuilding, I understood that it was okay to have boundaries and to prioritize my own emotional well-being. In the end, I had emerged from the fire of betrayal not only with a renewed sense of love for Sarah, but also with a deeper understanding of who I was and what I needed in a relationship. Life was unpredictable, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, hand in hand with the woman who had fought to reclaim our love. The journey would continue, but I was no longer afraid. I was ready to embrace the unknown.